Welcome to an all-new episode of St. Louis Presents.
Hi, Debbie.
Vern, thank you for filling in for Steve Potter this week.
I'm always happy to do so. To co-host with you is just the bomb.
It's very sweet. Lots of sweets out there right now, of course. Valentine's Day, February, the month of Mardi Gras.
And Black History Month.
And Black History Month. So if you, there's no excuse to not take in some event for Black History Month because there is so much of it going on in the St. Louis community. So we're going to run down a lot of those events, most of them absolutely free. So stick around for that.
We need to cover that because so many people don't remember history in this country.
We are very
Whether
bad
it be
about
black
history.
or white.
Yeah, just history in general.
Right.
It's
yeah.
true. But one thing we should talk about that's not free is football. Oh. Football is an expensive proposition, whether it's going to a game or taking your family or buying the apparel or building a new stadium. So we're going to talk about the politics and the finances of Rams football and keeping it here.
Brian Sfeld of Biz Journal of the Rams is going to be here to talk with us about that.
Stick around. We'll talk Rams, Black History Month, and so much more, all coming up on this next episode of St. Louis Presents. The Black History Month celebration at St. Louis Public Library is one of the library's largest events, and they pull out all the stops. Here to tell us more about the events taking place in 2015 is Tiffany Davis. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, Tiffany, you're with the Kings Highway branch, which is the one at Kings Highway in Southwest, right?
Yes.
Now, I think it's a great location because then people can take their books and they can go read them in that beautiful garden that's right across the street.
It is. It's such an underutilized garden, but it is very pretty.
It really is. Yeah. Now, I'm just looking at the list of events, and I can't even imagine how much time and effort must go into planning Black History Month at the St. Louis Public Library, because is it safe to say that every single branch in the system has something going on throughout the month?
Correct. There's always an adult program and a children's program, and it does take a lot of planning. It's a year-long process. We'll start, actually we've already started now looking out to 2016 and coordinating all the programs. So this year we took specific care in making sure that nothing is happening at the same time at a different location, so people can attend just about everything if they choose to.
Okay, so I'm a terrible planner. So you're talking about planning all these events at 17 different branches. You're already planning ahead for next year. When you plan them, you do them, because I think that's very nice. If you look at a whole list of events, oh, I'd like to do these two, but they're at the same time. So you're saying that won't happen?
No. So there may be a couple events in the same day. We try to dissuade that as well, but they're not at the same time. So even if there's a 2-hour gap, it's time for you can go from north part of the city to the south part of the city and still make all the events.
Let's talk about some of the big ones first, and the keynote speaker this year. What can you tell us about this year's keynote speaker, Judy Smith?
Well, Judy A. Smith, she is a crisis manager, an author, and she actually was the inspiration for the TV show Scandal.
Really?
Yes.
Now that I did not know. Now my interest is perked up, because who among us does not love some Scandal? That's a great show. So she is sort of the basis of Olivia Pope. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. Her work in crisis management actually inspired that role.
That's amazing. All right, so that's February 22nd coming up in the beautiful new Central Library Auditorium.
Right, and it's free. Actually, all our events are free, and everything is first come, first served basis.
I also love looking through the list of events that you did say there were things for adults and for kids, but also there are, some very serious things. There are discussions. There are also movies. There's just such a variety. So if people want to kind of keep it light, they can do that. how do you decide, like what's the right balance? Should we show more movies? Should we have more speakers? How do you come to that decision?
Well, we give the managers the freedom to do what would interest their patrons so that their patrons are getting what they need out of the library, because it is a community-based organization. So based on the manager's thoughts of what would do well at their branch, that's how we proceeded.
Now, what's Preaching on Wax with Lerone A. Martin? Can you tell us a little bit about, I know he's going to be preaching on wax. Is that about recordings, the phonograph, and the making of modern African-American religion? It's pretty fascinating stuff. Also, Kadir Nelson, who's going to be talking about his book on Nelson Mandela.
Right, he will be. He's actually an artist and a children's author / illustrator, and he does a fabulous book titled We Are the Ship, and it's the story of the Negro League baseballs.
Yeah, and so he'll talk about the Negro League. I noticed there's also an event coming up to kind of introduce kids to Jackie Robinson, which, is definitely an inspiring story. What would be your best recommendation for parents or anyone in the community to, get the complete rundown and figure out exactly how they want to approach Black History Month with so many events going on?
Well, I suggest everybody to go to a location. We have our Black History Month brochures. It has a calendar of events that is set out in date order. And then also the theme this year is a century of Black life, history, and culture. And so the century was broken down into decades. And so every branch represents a decade. So the program is based on the decade that they represent.
Very interesting. Now, there's been so much talk about race in St. Louis. Now, does Ferguson fit into any of this? Do we address that during Black History Month, or is this really more of a celebration and a looking back as opposed to looking forward?
Well, this is a celebration of the history and the looking back. There may be room and opportunity at some events for things to be discussed, but this is just a celebration of all the wonderful things that have happened.
Well, congratulations, Tiffany, on putting together another great roster, another month of wonderful events. SLPL.org, as you can see, is the best place to go to get the whole rundown, or just pop into your local branch. Thanks so much, and have a fantastic month.
Thank you.
Vern Fuller has a look at some news headlines for us. Let's see what he's on right now.
Thank you, Debbie. The St. Louis Public School District is seeking the best and brightest principals and teachers in all subject areas and grade levels for the 2015-2016 school year. Candidates must have a bachelor's degree or higher and Missouri certification or proof of eligibility for certification. Applications may be submitted online by visiting slps.org/careers. The St. Louis Rams have notified the city's Convention and Visitors Commission that they plan to move to a year-to-year lease agreement for their use of the Edward Jones Dome. While the Rams are set to play their 2015 season here in St. Louis, the future of the team remains uncertain as plans move forward on a new stadium in Los Angeles. The Missouri Botanical Garden is inviting you to journey into a world filled with beautiful orchid flowers and their amazing pollinators this winter during the garden's annual orchid show. Hundreds of rarely seen orchids will be in bloom and on display through March 22nd. After visiting the orchid show, be sure to visit the solo exhibition, Orchids in the Realm of the Sublime, to see large-scale oil paintings highlighting orchids found in some of the 35 countries and 6 continents where the garden actively engages in research. For more information, visit mobot.org. Debbie, what do you think about orchids? Is that your favorite flower?
Orchids are the Botanical Garden does an amazing job with their orchid show, but that's a plant that is gorgeous when it blooms, and when it's not blooming, it's the ugliest plant. Have you ever seen an orchid that's not blooming? It's like 2 scrawny little leaves, and that's it, and it takes another year until you get a flower.
I guess I've just seen them after the full bloom.
Yeah, usually I get irritated looking and throw them away before they bloom again. Well, we also saw some pictures of the proposed new stadium for the St. Louis Rams, and the big question is, will they stay or won't they? As Vern mentioned, we now know that the Rams will play the 2015 season in St. Louis, but what will happen to the city if the Rams move to Los Angeles in 2016?
Brian Felt is here joining us. He's a reporter for the St. Louis Business Journal, and he's been following this story pretty closely. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
You know, we saw this beautiful proposal for a stadium on the riverfront, and I think a lot of people looked at it and went, wow, that's really cool, because in many ways, having a big stadium right there on the river is probably more appealing than this, closed dome. But then the next question is, who are we proposing this for, Brian? Because Stan Kroenke doesn't return anybody's phone calls.
Yeah, Stan is kind of MIA from this whole scenario. I'm sure he's got his representatives that are cluing him in on what's going on. But I think it's important to remember that Dave Peacock and Bob Blitz and Governor Nixon are not only pitching to the Rams, but they're pitching to the NFL. Mr. Peacock has obviously had plenty of conversations with NFL officials, and they're making sure that if the Rams do move to LA, that the NFL has a commitment to move at least another franchise to St. Louis.
But you say if. Isn't there, tell me if I'm wrong, isn't there 5 or 6 times the television advertising revenue generated simply by making the move to LA? And isn't that really what it's about? The dollar?
There's no doubt that the Rams are a more valuable asset to Stan Kroenke in LA. I think the number is the Rams are worth, they have a value of $2.1 billion with a new stadium in LA as opposed to a new stadium in St. Louis, and they'd be valued more around $1.5 billion. And certainly a team in LA gives the NFL owners a lot more money to share in terms of that advertising pool. Whether or not, the big question is whether or not the NFL will let a team move to LA. Right now, LA is a massive bargaining chip to get stadiums built across the entire league. You look at Minnesota, Buffalo wants to build a new stadium. So there's no doubt there'll be a team in LA. It looks a good chance that possibly that's the Rams. But right now, that's getting stadiums built across the league.
But Brian, the dome is less than, let's say, 20 years old. If it was a house, it'd be considered a new house. What do we need to play 8 games of football? What do we need? We're still talking about football.
But they say they may build this new stadium and we'll get a Major League Soccer franchise as well.
Yeah, the commissioner of Major League Soccer has said that he's coming to St. Louis. I think that's in a month or two. He'll be coming down here, and obviously he'll be talking to probably Dave Peacock about bringing an MLS team here. That's contingent, of course, on the stadium. Yes, the Rams do play only 8 games, so the economic impact that they have is minimal. But if the Rams were to move to a new stadium or even move to LA, that clears up the convention center and the dome for more conventions. I think the number is $20 million in economic benefit if they can clear that schedule and have conventions in the dome. And those are people that are also buying hotel rooms, going to restaurants and buying meals, going to museums and whatnot.
Now, I know this has been a question that the Business Journal has looked at before, but, does it impact, and you talk about 8 games, it's kind of a minimal impact when you're, on the economy as opposed to however many games, say, the Cardinals have. But when it comes to image, when it comes to being able to recruit other businesses, when it comes to having that national profile, does it make St. Louis a less desirable city if we lose an NFL team for a second time?
I think it does. I think the second time is kind of a big point there. Certainly St. Louis hasn't had the best PR image over the last 6 months. Losing an NFL team for the second time in 30 or 40 years, whatever that number is not a good thing on the image of St. Louis. Talking to business owners, sponsors that are already on the Dome right now, they say it's a big plus that they bring in clients. They bring them to NFL games. It's a positive for them to have a team in St. Louis.
But Brian, can we support a football team, a hockey team, a baseball team? Do we have the population and the internal revenue as a city to support so many pro teams?
Well, in terms of going out to the games, winning solves everything. I mean, the Cardinals are winning. People are going to Busch Stadium in record numbers. Blues are winning right now. Those games are seemingly always sold out. The Rams have not been very good as of late, and they do pull in a decent amount of attendance, but they are actually on top of the league, not the top, but among the league leaders for attendance of out of town. So whether it's the Broncos fans all coming for the Broncos game, 49ers for a 49ers game, that seems to be the case. But like I said, winning cures everything.
Well, there's a lot more to be said about this story. We'll have to wait and see if Stan Kroenke ever returns a phone call. What comes of this proposal to maybe build a new stadium, and does Stan actually need permission to move? Because Jerry Jones said a few weeks ago, he doesn't really. He could just go. Then I think he walked that back a little. So
yeah,
this is a continuing saga of what's happening with the St. Louis Rams, but we appreciate it, Brian. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of St. Louis Presents.
Thanks to all of our guests, and thank you for watching from home.
We'll see you next time here on STL TV.